Foundation Course Kabbalah, Part 1, by Rabbi Michael-ben-Pesach, Portnaar. Preface. In our daily life, we meet a lot of situations that in a way control our lives. They overrule us with their coarseness, fatality, and in a way there is no space to practice our own free will. They're blocking our independent and independency actions. They evoke in us anger and comprehension, and at last a deep, everlasting disappointment. It seems inevitable, and in a way it is, because only by living according to the laws of this world, it isn't possible for a person to come to the achievement of the so-longed wholeness, or it will be a long and unnecessarily painful way. And when a human being is in this aspect, he only sees a fragment of the whole reality and not the whole picture. When the world was created, there was given an instruction, and of course, there was given to the whole mankind the instruction, but we have forgotten. There's only one subscription, one way, which leads to fulfillment. So everyone who reads this book, and what is more, start working with what he reads, will feel the right way. He will be shown the way step by step that brings him to fulfillment, leads him to wholeness. And when you become attached and you want to know more, don't hesitate. You can always contact us and maybe start learning with the one who are walking the same way. Please notice this book is a subscription from the spoken word. Sometimes it is inevitable to make grammatical mistakes, but remember, it is as it is. The most important thing is to get the feeling with what has been said. This book is for everyone who has the interest and the feeling of a demand deep within him for the spiritual. These lessons of the foundation course in Kabbalah were given during the period of 2004-2005 in Amsterdam. These entire lessons were recorded. It is within our intention to make more and more lessons available in text and to submit at this book. This ebook is from them who are interested, and to give them some impression from this first part in our education of the Lurian Kabbalah. Rabbi Michael-ben-Pesach, Portnaar. Lesson 1, Part 1. So far, there was no need to record the lessons. The last 3 months are to be seen as a warming up, a sort of a preparation for how to give Kabbalah. When a person starts with Kabbalah, he's full of pride. From the outside, he may look like a very good and social person, but from within, he's one piece of longing only for himself. Although he may have the point in the heart, meaning there's something in him pushing him forwards, higher, it has been broken during the first 3 months. A lot of people have started the course, and some of them have left us for whatever reason. For them who have a group in another city can come together and the day after or when they have time. And maybe later we will have a camera too. And maybe later on when we can have a live broadcasting so people can listen and follow our lessons directly live, but that is for the future. Now we're working on the new site, and this site will be quite different, one than all the other sites concerning Kabbalah. We're working only with a small group of people, sometimes till late in the night with limited forces, but we will succeed. If a person gets paid for what he's doing directly, he closes his heart, and his heart shuts his doors directly. It happens. I have seen this happen a few times. It is my experience that this is what is happening. When a person does do something for the money, his heart becomes cooler and he wants to do things all by himself. Then I see a person makes calculations, but I also see that there are people who make their spare time free for the Kabbalah and help with correction, translation, etc. And for this work they receive the highest reward. A reward only remains when a person does do something without the expectation for to receive a reward, or when he says the work is the reward. In other words, the doing is the reward. And this is the dream of the Creator, that mankind will do something without the longing for to receive something in return. not for himself or for the world to come. This will bring him to the paradise when there is not even one expectation for his work. It is the same for honor, or when you say, "See how good I am in my heart." He is honoring himself. Or when he is doing something for free, "Look at me, how good I am." It looks good, but with this you can't reach the Creator. There is a law in the spiritual and accordingly in the universe that says, from above will be given only what is strictly necessary. What does this mean? It means when a person has the expectation, for example, now I do something so later I will be a good Kabbalah teacher, it is a very good thought, isn't it? It is good for the beginner. Why? One can't do anything in this world without asking reward. He can't do otherwise because this is within nature. We learn more about this later. He does do things from the outside, maybe without the longing for reward, but deep inside there is a trace of intention for his own interest. In every one of us there is a track of selfishness. This is within every one of us, without any expectation because we lack the purity, but we are all striving for this purpose. In a way, this is a decision from above. From above we receive the strengths, and these strengths are divided, whereby a person who gives does do this with the selfish interest, and nothing comes from above. When he or she receives is what he has longed for. So when a person says, I want to be a Kabbalah teacher, I give a lot of sacrifices from my side, I stop going to the pub, etc. And when I have become a teacher, and then I start giving lessons and earn a lot of money, what is wrong with this? Nothing is wrong in this, but it is all for the own interest. Don't think maybe later there will be a professional teacher in Kabbalah. No one can be a professional teacher in Kabbalah. And for a person who says, I want to do this not for myself but for the Creator, he doesn't mind. In a way, he's working for free, but that most of us say, I have to make a living. It won't be a problem if you only ask what you strictly need for your living. And what is more, then you receive from the above the true real blessing, the high freedom of strength that liberates you from your egoism that withhold you from the true reality. We aren't living in the true reality. Of course, our daily life is reality, but we can't see how the world is made and how the world is functioning. In a way, we're living in this world with our eyes closed. We're all blind. Everyone and the Kabbalah is there for us to open our inner eyes and not the physical eyes. But as an outcome of the work, our physical eyesight will improve. But the Kabbalah opens our true inner eyes, meaning it shows us the true relations within a person. See it this way. In the material world, one invests all his strengths, for example, to buy a new car. And he saves, let's say, 10 years, and he prays, and eventually he gets what he wants. And there's a magazine quote, and this magazine tells us about the 500 wealthiest people in Netherlands. This is also Kabbalah. This is life. Someone writes about the expectations he has and says, well, when I looked at my bank account, I saw an amount of 100 million euros, and that amount, it was if all heavens were open for me. What are these heavens? Indeed, his heaven was open. He was as honest as he could be, because for him, his heaven opened through the questions he had asked. But when you get involved in the real spiritual, you will notice that your heavens are much higher than the heaven of this man who had the 100 million euros on his account. We're talking about different heavens. We speak about the true heaven, the heaven where one receives life in his heart from the source. He will feel there's a strength within him, a strength that is tickling within him, and slowly he receives the certainty that there is something, a strength that always will help him, a strength that is always prepared to help him, and that is more, his strength will open more and higher the heavens for him. These are the spiritual heavens, and from there is never-ending flow of the giving. They give us 100 million, and maybe even double, but everything in relation with the spiritual. Can you imagine what it is, these spiritual pleasures? When you learn Kabbalah, it will happen, sometimes 20 times a day, and your account in the spiritual world is growing and growing. But when you say, that's it, because you're satisfied, you have a satisfied feeling and you give the splendor feeling directly to others, then there is the danger you become an actor. That it becomes a particular role in your life. You know, a human being has to be very careful and reserved with his spiritual earnings. The result of your pleasure is quite different. Every pleasure, as in the example, his dream of the 100 million euros, what when he has this amount, what then? The next day he will have a hangover of 100 million. You know, in a way, these 100 million euros doesn't have his interest anymore. The effect of pleasure will be quite different. Every experience of pleasure, as in the example with the 100 million euros, is a long wanted dream. And now when he has achieved this dream, what next? The next day, he has a hangover of 100 million. These 100 million don't have this interest anymore. We are living here in this material world, and here it is with every pleasure the same. We can only experience the lowest pleasure. We call this in the name of animal pleasure, just as food, drink, and sex. And there's also higher strive for pleasure, what we name the striving for richness. This is a striving what is very relative, because this can be for every person different. And when we have a higher wish for power, honor, etc., and all our wishes culminate in the highest wish, science. But whatever wish you have, they all belong to your earthly life. But there are certain wishes in the heart that can't be fulfilled, not even with 100 million euros. A person who comes to the Kabbalah chooses for a life that will give him an everlasting fulfillment. And if you want an everlasting fulfillment, you have to work for it. First, there's the need of a temporary limitation. Why? Because the Creator wants us to receive, but we don't know how to receive. The word Kabbalah comes from the word receiving. Kabbalah is the teaching of how to receive, and nothing more. How can I receive in a way that I won't have a hangover afterwards? When you have received the wish, it will be followed by a hangover or a point of satisfaction. You had a wonderful dinner, or you feel satisfied. This feeling is not different from other things as richness and power. It is written about Napoleon that he had said he had received the ultimate power. The whole world was under his power, and he had received this from above, meaning the Creator. Notice that all great men of power are as puppets on a string, and from above they have the order to reign here on earth. Also, Napoleon had felt satisfaction during 5 or 6 days. There were days when he went to the park and with his beloved, and one because he was tired of all his generals. When a person has received the power, he won't get the satisfaction. Either he who works in science. For them who are working in science, who think they have the ultimate goal in life, come to the same delusion. Why? It is impossible to have the ultimate knowledge, and in a way he knows. When he dies, there will come someone else who goes even further than the point he had reached. It isn't his ultimate knowledge. In earlier days, you saw great philosophers, and they also thought they had reached the top of the hill. For example, Hegel, a great German philosopher, he thought he had the greatest intellect. And though he will be disillusioned too. Why? Well, the intellect of the Creator is far beyond. It is an internal intellect, so great that we never can reach his ending. It can't give a human being the ultimate satisfaction. What we have is limited and transitory, while when a person keeps himself busy in a true and honest way, with the spiritual wonders will happen. Not the miracles you think, but something will happen deep inside of you. On a certain moment, he will see and feel a certainty deep inside, and he connects this with his ultimate intellect of the Creator. He doesn't understand what it's all about, but he lays himself as an embryo in the womb. This is the attitude of a person has to lay his life into the hands of the higher. But what is the higher? It is within me. In a way, what you have to do is lay yourself down in the hands of the higher mind. Through this, you will receive from the higher, just as the embryo receives from his mother. What the mother eats, the embryo will eat the same. And this is what we have to do with every wish, to lay ourselves into the hands of the higher in an unconditional way. I have a neighbor who goes every weekend to a party, and he said to me at Monday, I have an appointment with a psychologist. Why? He needs him to bring him back in daily practical life. But when the weekend is there, he goes party. Deep inside, a person knows, everyone knows he won't get the fulfillment here on earth in his earthly wishes. It is written in the Talmud and also in the Torah, a man dies without even fulfilling half of his wishes. When you die, there won't be the question how much you have had here on earth, neither at the workman nor at the millionaire. Both will come to the same conclusion. He didn't receive not even half of all his money or food or whatever earthly things he had longed for. While a person who begins to come in contact with the spiritual, he receives every day. Every day he receives a portion of an infinite, enjoying fulfillment. Through what? Because this person from and with his inner, he lays himself into the hands of the Creator and accepts whatever comes to him. In my early days, I also had all the longings of a great businessman could have. I have been there too. I was deeply involved. But a person not only has to seek for richness or other things, he has to feel it too. What does it mean? To lay all the sins upon yourself? In the Hebrew language, we say nosavon, to carry the sins. To carry means a person has to experience it all by himself and handle it all by himself. I don't need the 100 million euros in natural for to wake up the feeling inside of me for richness. For to be rich, I can wake up the feeling and in a way carry the feeling of richness. It is the same with all enjoyment of our life. You don't need the whole picture for it to come in the spiritual, but in a way there is to be the need of all the wishes. Why? Because it is human. It is within our human nature. In a simple way, a person has to be part of it. Whatever your wishes are, the wish for food, drink, sex, and to have a family life, it is there. It is within our nature. A person can't say, okay, I stop with this. A limitation is different and has to be there before you can come and involve yourself with the spiritual. But there isn't the need for pass through all the phases of richness and power and then come to the spiritual. But these wishes have to be there within you. Why? Because then you make your ego eligible, fit, and become as high as possible. So eventually you can come to a decision within the heart or come to a deep insight. Now you can say, I'm prepared to leave it all behind and keep myself busy with the spiritual. When we transcribe this to a person who wants to learn the Kabbalah, if he's a student or a baker, it is up to him which choices he makes. It is wrong to say, now I keep myself busy with the spiritual for 100%. You have to eat and drink. You have to keep yourself busy with the daily courses. In early days, with this was hunting and working on the land. Nowadays, it is your wife, husband, car, and holiday. But when you keep yourself busy only with what you strictly need, you will go faster forwards in the spiritual. But when you're still focused on the wishes of this world, and you invest too much energy in these wishes of food, drinks, and other things, it will go at the expenditure of your spiritual development. You can say, what's the benefit of spiritual development? I want to become richer. Is that wrong? Do I have to flee to a monastery? No. Not if you work with your intellect and with your capacity, given at you by nature, and you work 8 hours per day. When you have to work 8 hours per day to earn €1 million per year, it could mean that this is what you have to do, and this is what is given to you for you to do. You don't invest 24 hours per day, but only work 8 hours with all the capacity you have within you. And another person has to work 12 hours per day to earn €2,000 per month. This is what he has to do and what has been given to him. Remember, it is always individual and is the same with all the other wishes a person has. Only a person himself specifies or thinks he specifies himself. Actually, everything is being governed from above. He thinks it is his wish, but all the wishes and thoughts are being whispered in our ears from above. In other words, he is guided, but it is the wish of the Creator to let us feel otherwise, that we have the feeling we aren't puppets on a string. He guides us in such a way that we think that all what we are doing is by our own choice. And in a way it is. It is my wish because otherwise there should be no freedom of my will. But when a person keeps himself busy with the Kabbalah, slowly there's a change in him or her. There are people who are coming to the Kabbalah only for 3 lessons, others for 3 months, till he has reached, in his opinion, the fulfillment that what he needed, and then goes back to our world, to the wishes of the material world, till the moment comes again and he feels the urge for it to come to the Kabbalah. It is written in the Kabbalah that every person receives a chance, once, twice, or 3 times in his life, to occupy himself with the spiritual. But can we say he who didn't have the chance that he has a shortcoming? You see, it is for you to know that the spiritual is not something a person can choose. It is a primal strength that wakes up this wish. It was predestined in the book of Zohar that this generation would feel this feeling, meaning in every person living at this moment in this world, it is possible that he will be waked for the spiritual. In a way, it is the goal of every person. Every person has to come to this fulfillment. Every person will feel, one way or another, the wish for it to come to the spiritual. Of course, the lower animal wishes are there for us to use them. It is part of our existence. But besides this, or afterwards, you can occupy yourself with the spiritual. Why? Because it is the goal of our existence, created within the creation of the world. It isn't the person himself who chooses, although it may look this way. Every person will come to his perfect fulfillment, whereby all the strengths given at him by the Creator will come to complete development. Of course, we can't see this right away. We don't see the differences, but later, step by step, we will see the differences, every one of us. And when you say, no, not me, then you're acting like a child. Can we say to a child, do this or do that? No, a child wants to play with his toys. And can we blame him? It is the same for a grown-up person. He is still playing in the so-called imaginary reality. He lives according to this imaginary reality, but there's no escape. So the sooner you come, the faster, the better. And it is possible that there is a question within you. If everyone will come to his wholeness, why should we learn the Kabbalah? You see, Kabbalah is there to give us a way to reach the finish as soon as possible. You can compare this with, for example, a marathon. One person has reached the finish and there are others who are still running. By learning Kabbalah, you are the one who will come sooner at the finish than others. And what is more, all the existing suffering, you don't have to go through it. It isn't necessarily for you to go through the suffering. You will walk before the evil, or in other words, the evil will walk behind you. You are one head before by occupying yourself with the Kabbalah. But of course it will cost time, effort for to make choices. What shall I do? Where I give lessons opposite, there is a bar, kreya. And of course there's a lot of pleasure, but you have to sacrifice something. You sacrifice something for something far better. In other words, you aspect something better. But is it possible for us to probe our own intentions? It is to say, can we probe our intentions considering the spiritual? Is it possible to probe with my learning in the Kabbalah or to come to the goal of the Creator and therefore also the goal of creation? Is this possible? Let me give you an example. For instance, there are 2 people and one of them wants to give the other a loan. He sees the person needs money and he wants to loan the other the money. But he's unable to give sufficient security, so I have to loan him the money in completely trust. I can say, okay, he's my friend and I love him. I trust him and I'm very pleased to give him £10, euro. Now we can say his trust is worthy £10, euro, but for instance, I loan him $100, euro. So great is my confidence in him. But there is also a third option, where I say, I have so much confidence in him, I will give him half of my property, which means he has a huge confidence. How big is your confidence? Suppose he can't give you anything back. It is possible too. Or does this possibility, don't you come to your mind? Suppose he can't give the money back, and despite you're willing to give him the half of your property, Here's the last example. We see the love is far greater and his confidence is far greater than the person who wants to give his friend only £10 euro. But there exists another form of trust, a trust of 100%, whereby someone is prepared to give everything what he has without the knowing if the other could return it. This is an example of complete trust and of deep faith. And through these examples, we can probe ourselves and see how deep and true my intentions are. What should you do if you should win the lottery? And let's say you win an amount of 10 million euros. What would be the first thought in your mind? Don't think about it instantly. You have to know right now how you should spend the money. This is a way to become aware of our true intentions that we have regarding the Creator. Replace the names, for example, into you and the Creator. And I'm prepared to give myself completely. Am I prepared to give myself completely to the Creator? You have to know it is exactly the same. Is my faith worth £10, not the material money, but in strength, wishes, and with things of whom I think I am? Am I prepared to give for myself, meaning to lay myself just as an embryo into the womb of the higher, with a confidence so huge from the inside, of course, nothing from the outside? Am I willing to sacrifice all the wishes I have from the inside with all the strength I have? How much time do I want to invest in the Kabbalah and in the Creator? Not the investment of our material world, but from the inside, and with this inner alliance, to feel the bond I have with everyone around me. This is a way to probe yourself constantly. Become aware of what your surrounding is saying to you. From the outside, they try to prescribe what you have to do, and if you say, I don't have so much time for the Kabbalah, or it cost me a lot of money, become aware that you are giving them the opportunity to react. Then you let prescribe others your destiny. For example, the society, your wife, your children, or who there is in your surrounding. And what is more, you start to try to justify yourself by saying, I didn't have any time, but next week I can make myself free. Never, and I really mean never, let others influence you from the outside. It is your life. You are the one who decided how much time you will spend in the spiritual. Why? Because this is all about you. We are only talking about you. And through this, you will come step by step closer to yourself. So now, others can't tell you what to do or not to do. You have your destiny in your own hands. Of course, you can learn the whole day the Torah, but a half hour is also good. You have to know there are two very important elements in the study. And with study, we mean the study for the spiritual, or in the other words, your intentions for the higher. And as I have said, there are two elements, quantity and quality. Quantity is how much time can I spend during a week in the spiritual, and quality is the intensity. You know, there can be a person who's learning all day, and there can be someone who only has the possibility to spend only half an hour once a week. He has to work for a living. He has to do what he has to do. Maybe he isn't as clever in this life and has to work hard for to earn a living. Maybe he doesn't use his elbows and he needs 12 hours per day to make a decent living. Such a person can only spend 15 minutes or less per day, or maybe per week, but he does learn. You see, if he does do this with intensity so great, he can achieve as much as the other person who's learning 8 hours per day. And from above, they see everything. They see both persons. Also the one who has to only spend 15 minutes. His 15 minutes can produce more activity than the one who is studying 8 hours per day. It is different in the spiritual. One can sit in the synagogue spending hours of study, and the only thing he does is wear out his trousers. There is no measurement in the spiritual. A short story. At the beginning of the 20th century, there was a great wise rabbi in Israel, Rabbi Kook. He was the first rabbi of the land Israel. And you know, he who is the first is always very good. It is the same in our material world. The father starts a factory and works with heart and soul. And then the son, he has an easy life. But about Rabbi Kook. He was really a great man, and once he came to the synagogue in Jerusalem, and you have to know, he was the greatest of his generation. But in Jerusalem, there were also great rabbis who knew a lot, who had a great stature and strength and honor. They showed him the great synagogue and, of course, the best of their students. He shakes hands with them, but there was a short, tiny person. They didn't show him. But Rabbi Kook saw this person sitting in one of the corners of the synagogue, and he approached him, and what more, he had a deep bow for this little, tiny person. And all the great rabbis was standing around him, and the spokesman said to Rabbi Kook, "This person is illiterated. He can't read, but he does look in the Talmud, but he's far, far off of science. Aren't you mistaken?" But Rabbi Kook answered them, "Although nature has given him little, he uses it for the maximum. Even when nature has given at you a little, or you received little from the Creator, use it with the utmost effort you have in you." And that's why Rabbi Kook bowed for this person, because from above, they look quite different upon us. The Creator looks with other eyes than we people who are living here in the material world. We look at someone and we judge him by how many books he has written or how many congresses he attended, but not so from above. The only thing they see from above is the intention, kavanah. Not the strength, not the amount, but the intensity is important. Kabbalah is quality, and not the hours you spend during a day are important. Through the intensity, you will receive the high light. It is all about how you work. For example, a person can have by nature the potential strength to receive 10,000 of light units, or he has the potential to make a correction in such a way whereby he is capable to receive 10,000s of light units. And little tiny man in our story, he's given by nature to receive hundreds of those light units. And the big one, he writes books and does do a lot for humanity, and now he wins a Nobel Prize or whatever. Everyone knows him. He's an example for humanity, and in a way he is. And only his wife knows the tiny man. This is the way in which we look at persons. But from above, they look different. They look at your true condition, deep inside. Everything in our world is keeping up appearance. And what is more, everyone appreciates it. But it's all appearance. The little tiny man in truth has made corrections in himself and used his strength and capacity of what nature has given to him. The little tiny man in the corners of the synagogue used 80% of what he knows. So, who had done more in the eyes of the Creator? Every one of us receives from above the strength of the giving, but we have to make a shift. And whom do you think has made the greatest shift? Indeed, the little tiny man. That's why Rabbi Kook was such a great person. He had the capability to make himself very small from the inside. So now he was capable to see what others couldn't see. He saw this tiny man was far greater than the one who were sitting in the first row and who enjoyed themselves enormously because they felt themselves so good. There are people who only can give a few coins to the poor, and there are people who can give thousands of euros. But the Creator doesn't notice this, or the other things we do for other people. Of course, it is good to be generous for others, but their intention is all about strength. How much strength can I give for myself, or how many books do I have to write for it to be seen as a genius? Or look at me, how much money I donate to the poor. Look at me, how generous I am. In reality, his intention were only to be seen, to be honored. And then we see the little tiny man. He's the one who has the victory. If we really want to have little understanding of Kabbalah, it is essential to eliminate our intellect. Never make comparisons. We don't speak about this world, although we use words of this world. Everything what is outside of you hasn't anything to do with the Kabbalah. Everything you see is with the use of your 5 senses. But in the Kabbalah, we speak to your inner being. Our words are divining sparkles coming from the spiritual world. What is a Jew? A Jew is the inner being within yourself, in every one of us. And in the Kabbalah, we learn how to come in agreement with his qualities. Therefore, we use our inner. If you want to experience the spiritual, then you have to come in agreement with the laws of the universe. Only then you can have an understanding of what spirituality means. And we are made in such a way that every one of us can come to wholeness here on earth and not in the hereafter. That's only a childish thought. There are Jewish laws, but they relate to the inner being. These Jewish laws are the laws of the universe, given to us by way of Moses. And in Kabbalah, we will learn about these laws. The real spirituality learns about these laws and the laws of the universe and how to come in agreement with them, the agreement in quality. To be a Jew means, in the Kabbalah, to be an inner part of humanity. The interpretation of the word Jew means wholeness, to be one with the Creator. It is quite unacceptable to give your attention at the outward appearance. We are beginning with the striving for the spiritual. We're the first generation. Now the time is ripe for our souls. Our souls are ready for it to come to the fulfillment. Kabbalah is not hype. Everything is new and everything is aged. But for us, it is new. Everything what exists can be presented in the following aspects: inner, outer. Higher, meaning closer to the light. Lower, meaning darkness. The inner structure of the human being. Our starting point is a dot, deep inside of us. We have this dot that we give the name of Ein Sof. Ein Sof means endless light. Then this light lies deep inside of us and shines from this point. This light that shines from the deepest of the deepest is named Ein Sof. It's not mine, but it shines in me. We can name this God, but we prefer to say the quality of the absolute unselfishness with is poured out in the universe from within this light. Ein Sof shines the endless light. The more I come to this center higher, the more the light shines. But when I go further away from it, more to the outside, the darker it will be. You can compare this with a lamp and the lampshade. The more lampshades we place around the light, the diffuser the light will be. And at a certain point, the light isn't to be seen at all, but the light is still there. In each one of us, light is there. What matters is the developing of a person. How far or how much can he experience this light? Kabbalah is a teaching of corrections. Through your corrections, you can come closer to the light. And Kabbalah helps us to develop our awareness. It is also about awareness and my own awareness. Not what or who I am in this material world, but only what I can experience from my inner. Kabbalah is the study of our inner. That is what we are learning. The inner being surrounds Ein Sof, and around this layer we see a new layer. We call this layer the neutral zone, or in other words, the zone of good and evil. And this is the zone a person can feel, or the good or the evil. The next layer is the layer of the outer being. And with this, we doesn't mean the physical person made of flesh and blood, but his outer observations. Within the part of the outer being, there is an inner part of the outer perceptions. We have named this the story. In this story, we see the stories of our values, all the religions, the upbringing, culture, etc. What we are doing is to penetrate these layers for it to come to the true reality, and you have to learn this and work hard. It is not a present. From the outside, again, we see light, but now in the quality of nature, this is an encircling light, but it surrounds us only from the outside. Not outside of our skin, but we feel the reaction, the outer reaction of the light. Now we can make the following plan. Ein Sof, the inner being, the neutral zone, the outer being, the inner part of the outer being, the story, and the light from the outside. These are the layers that encircle our being. What we experience is a story. The good and the evil isn't yours yet, but it comes to us through the story. the religions, society, etc. You have to penetrate to the deeper layers till you come to the point where you find the real neutral zone, the zone where you can experience in truth the good and evil that is within you. In a way, it is you who has to be the prayer. In other words, the complete surrendering of your being. Why? Because it is the teaching of the Creator Himself. You know, from the outside, we're all the same. Only the inner is the spiritual. The zone of the story brings us not to the real experience of the good and evil. We have to go further. See it this way. As long as a child is a child, we accept his behavior. He's still developing. In a kind of a way, a child is very primitive, but there are persons who are 60 or maybe 70 years of age and still a child, very primitive. We have to go deeper, further in our developing, and Kabbalah brings us deeper. Why are you here? Because you already feel you have to go deeper. Where is my true I? The light isn't mine. It is a shining experience by us. In the light there is no existence of the flesh. The light penetrates everything. In a way, there is no matter for the spiritual light. The inner being has come so close to the light, it doesn't exist anymore. But neutral zone, between the inner light and the outer light, in between, there am I, where with all the diversity, but we have to come as close as we can to the inner light for to experience the true I, and experience in the purest serenity, for to let the light shine upon my true I. And with all your intellect, you can't come there. You have to listen with your inner being. The inner being is learning against the light. This is the point where the experience is of absolute good. And further you go away from the inner light, when you come in the outer light, you experience the absolute evil. Thou shalt not kill is absolutely a spiritual law. It is a law of the universe. When you ignore this law, you darken your way. Of course, it is absolute evil, but this doesn't change the law of the universe. The universe remains good. You have to come to the experience of your good within you and not in the layer of the story that is still in the outer. With your awareness, you have to come inside, because from the inside you are one piece of feeling. You have to know one is only called a human when he has come to this point. The outer being is a story, the animal qualification. Of course, there is good too, but it isn't yours. It is the good within the evil, but it stays the outer. When one is still in the story, love is impossible. Only the inner we can speak of love. What you love is the story because it has been told to you, but you are lacking the sensitive organs. You have to know that from the inside there's still the evil, and as long as one stays in the outer, he desires a reward. The tiny it may see, it is still a phase of the evil. But now we see a new generation who's awake, and the Kabbalah is there for to uplift these people to a higher level, to a higher being. And the outer being can come to this fulfillment. A Jew is he who has come to this inner, and then he's standing near the Lord. The Lord is standing beside this person. Remember, I only speak to your inner being. Don't listen with your intellect. The intellect overrules, and what is more, it blocks your way for to come to the inner. The evil is in the observation. Know that from the inside everything is good. Do we have a free choice? Absolutely not. You have to penetrate yourself and come to the deepest level within you. Choice is an illusion, a delay. The Kabbalah teaches us how to come in contact with ourself by way of love. Only through the corrections I have to do, I can come to the side which is named the good in me. And when I come to the inner being, then there is the next step, melting together with the Creator, to come in unity with the Creator. Two extremes the Creator has created, the good and the evil, and only by learning one side we can come to the recognition of the other side. In other words, only when I recognize the evil, I can come to the opposite, the good. Everyone who attends this course is here because he wants to work at himself. The starting point for the good is the moment when I'm prepared to give up something of myself. When we're talking about Egypt, we don't talk about the land of Egypt, but we're talking about the outer being. A person who comes to the border of good and evil, but he has to go further. You have to come to your area of your good and evil. And we will call this point within the heart. And then we go further to the inner. The true being is the neutral zone. The true being is the neutral zone. This is the point you have to achieve, because this is my work area. The real inner being dissolves into the light. Sphira, singular, means emanation of the light. There are 10 emanations, or in other words, 10 sefirot, plural. This is the language of the feeling. So the inner being can grow. How can the inner being grow? By stimulating the good and evil. So now you can react and correct. Correction means looking at yourself to go inside. It is from the deepest despairing that I can give Kabbalah. It isn't possible to give Kabbalah lessons with the intellect, only from the feeling side. But the intellect resists. The outer strengths are so strong, all the resistance is coming from this point. Therefore, it is written, "You have saved me from the power of the strongest." The evil is strong, and the good is weak. Herein we see the difficulty. The weakest has to overwin the strongest. But know that eventually the weak will overwin. At the end, the good will overwin always. In this, we see a universal law of the Creator. The goal of the Kabbalah is to awake the feeling, the spiritual feeling, for it to come to fulfillment. In the Holy Zohar, the 5 books of the Old Testament, Tanakh, is written about the laws of the universe. No word is spoken about our world, the material world. Every being born in this world is as the outer being, meaning he lives with his 5 senses. This is the first phase of man, the outer being. In the second phase, a person experiences the point in his heart, but we don't mean the physical heart, but the epical center of his awareness. The point in the heart is the birth of the human being. We don't speak about the material being, what we call the 2-footed and speaking being who only lives according to his 5 senses. This person doesn't know anything. He even feels nothing. But what he feels is the outer being. And he can't see a human being because he isn't aware of himself as a human being. Only when a person starts the search for whom he really is, then there's the beginning of the real human being. The point in the heart reflects the start of this search. You can't buy it or wake it up. It comes from above. And this is a universal law. When a person comes to the Kabbalah lessons, this point is there already. As long a person is still into the first phase, you can't do anything in a way this person doesn't exist. But remember, in the eyes of the Creator, everyone is good, perfect, whole. Their development isn't yet ready, but for the light, they're all good. They don't see the light. All the hurting they do is at themselves. For the light, everyone is visible. It is man himself who doesn't see the light. Please notice, no religion can give you the mechanism for the correction. It is you who has to think at the fulfillment of your life, every minute of your time. The real giving is only possible from the inner being. You have to love your inner being. But what are we doing? We neglect it, or even worse, we hate our inner being. There is so much spoken about the word sin. This is a sin to give from your egoistic being. It isn't the reality, nor it is the truth. You have to learn to give from your inner being. Only then you can give to another person. Everything you give from your outer being is a sin. Only the inner being can give in an absolute, unselfish way. This has to be our goal. You have to grow up. To come to your own fulfillment. Only then you can give. The developing of the outer being starts with the search of food and drink. And then he searched for richness, and then for power, and finally he looks for all the wisdom and science. But all these aspects are connected with the outer being. Everything is illusion. The absolute evil from the angle of truth. Only when one comes to the point of the deepest disappointment, the moment when nothing can satisfy his longing. Then the point in his heart or in the heart becomes visible, tangible. And this point of the deepest disappointment comes from above. It is given from above, so now he can start the searching for the light. And this person is ready for the Kabbalah. The point in the heart is the starting point of this quest. Therefore, one has to come to the deepest disappointment, to the deepest despair, because only then one can see the light. To see the light means making oneself complete empty. When I want to see the light, I have to make myself one with the qualities of the light. And this quality is the aspect of absolute unselfishness. So, the second phase is the point in the heart, born from deepest despair, disappointment. There is something which can satisfy this person. The Creator only wants one thing. You have to give up all the outer layers for to come to the inner layers. That is what we mean with sacrifice oneself. This is the only aspect that we will be seen from above. Once you have left this material world, there will be only one question from the higher. Did you work at your inner? Did you live according to the story or according to your true I, the inner being? This is the birth of man. Every person has to come to his own rebirth. Rebirth is the feeling of the point in your heart and not in the hereafter. It is a point where you feel the separation. You start to feel the light is good and all other things are evil. Everything is twofold. You have to experience both for to come and to make the right decision. The wish of the Creator is to give the good and the pleasure. That is what you have to receive. This is the law of the universe. He gives and I receive. This is our nature, to receive. But to become one with light, I have to develop the same quality as He has. The giving. Therefore, I have to overwin my nature, the aspect of the receiving, into the aspect of the giving. That is what I have to develop in myself, to give in an absolute, unselfish way. This is how I am created. This is the aspect of my nature. The receiving, and as I stay in the outer being, I can't come to my fulfillment. Only in the respect, or only in the aspect of the giving, I can come to the fulfillment. Everything comes from the light, from above. Every healing comes from within, from my inner. And when you hear the word healing, don't make the mistake that we're talking about the physical body. It is only the consequence. When you learn the Kabbalah, the light penetrates you. You will be surrounded by the light. And the more you learn how to give in the real way, the more you will feel alive. The third phase is the extension of the point in the heart. Everything comes from the spiritual. By building up your inner, eventually you will overcome your outer. You will be the boss over your destiny, and it is you who controls all your actions. The giving is an aspect of the spiritual world. In a way, you will see your eyes will be opened, and then you can, by way of the inner strength, overwin the outer. And that's the wish of the Creator, that you will overcome the outer. Only then you can come to the real liberation. Nothing is wrong. Your way of thinking is so because you live in this world. But remember, your inner being doesn't see any evil. The inner being experiences joy, light. Only the inner being can have absolute joy. The outer being is the one who feels emotions. It is the outer being who is hurt. The absolute is within the inner being. And everything what doesn't relate to the inner being is to be as animal. Of course, still human, but animal-like. Only he who is in contact with his inner being understands there is no death, and there is no person who can harm another person, because the true human being is in the inner being. The whole developing lies within your own awareness, in your observation. Everything what is outside of me is only the Creator. The inner being is focused on the Creator.